Yeah, and Te's not very good
Hello,
in
everyone.
Europe,
Welcome
so
back to the
Inter
main
got a
event. And
bad
you're back
result.
with me, Dan. Only joking. Everyone, thank you so much for your patience, for bringing our podcast issues up with us last week. We wouldn't have probably found it for another couple of hours if everyone hadn't been so kind to message us. We really appreciate your understanding as well that technical difficulties happen. So hopefully we won't have any of that again this week, but you are back with the main event with me, Dan.
And Aaron. Yes, another game week has finished. I'm here for a review podcast. I'm not going to leave you two up for it again. Although it was a really good episode. I should take holidays more often.
Yeah, you should.
And that voice you've just heard is Nathan. Hello, Nathan.
Hi.
All right, so before we get into each match, we wanted to go through our teams, how we all did. Nathan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do. I was stupid and I made them 2 early transfers, as we discussed last week. And neither of them really paid off for us this week.
What were your transfers again, Nathan?
I brought in Kingsley Coleman and I brought in Angelino.
What a nightmare.
Yeah. So
Who
it
did you
wasn't the
take out?
best. Can't remember off the top of my head now.
Okay.
But I finished with 63 points this week. I got very lucky in the last minute when Haaland got us a goal. So it boosted me points up front. But Kimmich was my standout player. I mean, Mbappe got 2 assists, so it got us a few points, but would have been better if he'd scored.
No, definitely. Something that confuses me about your score, Nathan, is that I finished 3 points ahead of you in the last game week.
Mm.
And then you finished 3 above me this one, but yet you're 4 points behind me in the... Did you take a point hit?
Not that I know of, but I can't remember.
Because in the table in our league, you're 4 points behind me, even though in theory, you should be on the same amount of points as me. So I was just curious in case you've accidentally made another transfer.
Oh yeah, I did. I brought Mbappe in for Messi.
There we go.
And that paid off really well because Messi got an assist and a goal yesterday.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Nathan. Messi actually didn't get the assist for it. Ousmane Dembele did too much, apparently. It's one of those ones where if a player does too much work, the assist isn't given. So yeah, Messi didn't get it, but I mean, it's still a nightmare and a -4.
But are you happy with that score, or?
I mean, it's better than what I thought I might get this week. I mean, at first I did have Coleman as captain, and obviously I changed to Mbappe, so that was a good shout.
Yeah, definitely. So what are your ranks?
I am in our league. I'm 26. 25,000 in the world, and I'm 341 in England.
Good stuff. I'll go next. So I finished with 60 points for those who didn't do the math already. I felt like it was a good week. I brought in Pulisic, and I also transferred in Coleman, and I took out Forsberg and Sterling. Obviously, the Sterling one didn't work out, but I needed the funds to make sure I jumped on Coleman before his inevitable price rise, which has happened. And it was going well. I think the biggest risk that I took actually paid off. So that was good when I found out that Pulisic was benched, and I was getting messages being like, "Oh, just a warning, Aaron. Pulisic isn't starting," and I said, "I'm going to stick with him." Came on and scored, so he got more points than who I was going to leave Coleman on. So,
Pulisic, oh yeah, coming again to say your mother day now. Krasnodar, your game is through. Now you have to answer to Pulisic, oh yeah.
thanks for that, Dan. Yeah, Captain America did the work, and I think the only thing that I regret about the game is that I didn't bring on Barrios, because I thought that the Lazio team, when I found out that actually the team were isolating. I said to Dan earlier in the day that it was just a precaution, but some of the team didn't actually play a lot of it actually. And so I put Diatta on thinking that he would get a good game against Lazio instead of Barrios, but Barrios got more points. So I think that was my only regret really. And yeah, I was happy with how the week went in given the circumstances. So even though I'm 4 points ahead of Nathan, I am 17,500 in the world, 257th in England, and I'm 85th in the Atalanta fan league. So happy days.
I love that.
Dan?
Yeah, steady for me. Nothing to sing home about. I got 65 points. I brought out Messi for Mbappe, so that worked fine. And I brought out... What else did I bring out? Oh, so I had a bit of a decision to make, basically. I'd planned on going Fati to Mane, and then I sort of made a decision that I didn't want Mane because I wasn't convinced he was going to start. And if he did start, I wasn't convinced he was going to get more than 50-odd minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a decision to make on who to bring out to bring in Kingsley Coman. And I decided to bring out Barrios, which didn't really work too well when I probably should have brought out Emil Forsberg, but never mind, it's done. Forsberg was a penalty taker, so that's why I kept him in. So I brought Kingsley Coman and he didn't really do much anyway. Kimmich was my highest scoring player before captaincy with 10 points. I had captained Hakimi for 7 and then decided to make the risky switch on Wednesday to Mbappe, who got an extra point. So it worked out well. In terms of ranking, I've dropped, fellas.
Oh, no.
In our league, I am 6th. How very dare you to the 5 people above me. And then globally, I'm 1,781. And in England, I'm 44th. So still not all bad. The main thing is, well, first of all, actually, just want to give a shout out to who's top of our league. So that is Ahmed, I believe. I'm just loading up our league. Yeah, Ahmed with AC Hamad. He got 88 points this week, 186 points in total. So well done, mate. An average of 93 points per game week. Fantastic score. Try not to do so well next week, please. That would be nice. So yeah, well done to him. I think what I want to discuss with you, fellas, before we move on, are chip strategies. Do either of you have one?
I'm debating using my limitless wildcard next week. Like next game week.
And Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking about, because of the gap, there's a 3-week gap between game week 3 and game week 4. I was thinking about having my limitless wildcard this week and then having 3 transfers going into week 4, because I could then play around with the team more because of injury.
Aaron, can I quickly stop you for a second? Just, I appreciate you don't really have Twitter too much. There's been a lot of controversy on Twitter today.
Oh, no.
Oh, dun, dun, dun. The Gaming Hub's done it again. So for our new listeners who didn't listen to us last season, Aaron had a moment with UEFA where he had used his limitless wildcard in the knockout stages under the impression that it would be carried over, his transfers. It didn't happen. Aaron emailed them and they give him the excuse that it's not in the group stages, so we wouldn't carry it over. So Aaron now thinks that, and rightfully so, because it's in the rules, that one transfer would be carried over. Aaron, at some point yesterday afternoon, that rule was removed from the game.
Are you joking?
You will only get 2 transfers after your limitless.
Oh, well. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to go limitless this time. I think I'm happy enough with my team. It doesn't need too much. And limitless in the knockout round seems the best way to go. So not anymore, Dan, and it's to answer your question. I don't have a chip strategy anymore. Thanks, UEFA. And yeah, whoever can't figure out how to do a simple code. Yep.
Well done.
He's losing his mind. My My strategy. So I've got two in my mind, and it's all going to be quite reactive. So firstly, I want to use my limitless in the group stage. I didn't use my limitless wildcard at all last year, so I don't know how I finished fairly high without using it at all. But I will be using it at some point, and it will be game week 3 or game week 4. I haven't decided. It might be this week, whilst I've got a better sense of data, like in terms of form. But if I do press that button, so advice for anyone, even if you've got a limitless and you want to use it, just don't press it until Tuesday, because so many people, even like this week, that pressed it, on Thursday morning, thinking, yep, I'm going to do it. And then find out that Mane and Salah might not be playing. It's like, well, mate, that's what, 20 odd million that they would have spent that now they won't spend. So I will be waiting, and I want to see how I feel about it, but it will be game week 3 or 4. There's a thing about using both chips in the group stage, which is fantastic to attack from a position of strength if you want to be really aggressive with the game. The issue that I think a lot of people aren't thinking about is what happens if you get a lot of predictions wrong in the group stages and you don't have anything to fix it. So it was a conversation I was having on Twitter a little earlier, and I just want to quickly read out the list of teams that went out in the round of 16 last year. So Spurs, Juventus, Liverpool, Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Napoli, Valencia. All of those teams went out last year, and some of them, some teams were playing Lyon, Atletico Madrid. Like, there were a few teams there that would have expected to go through. So if you've made a team out of this lot, and then although they get knocked out, what contingency plan do you have to bring them in? So I'm in two minds, but I know what's going to make up my mind, and that is going to be game week 6. If I feel like I'm in with a shout of being globally ranked number 1, which is obviously a big ask, but like, it's just in case, then I will use my wild card to try and get that prize in game week 6 when a lot of teams are rotating and half the people's players just don't play anyway. Like, I got stung with that last year. I got 28 points game week 6 because I think 5 or 6 of my players actually played. So I'll be using that then if I've got a chance of winning that prize by game week 5. If not, I'll just be saving it for the knockout, because invariably, like everyone does, especially in the season of craziness in COVID, will probably get decisions wrong and will need that wild card. I know that both me and Aaron used our wild cards in the group stages last year, and it helped. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to field full teams.
No, definitely. That's really good advice. And I can't believe UEFA have stung me again with that rule. Like, that's absolutely ruined me.
I would just like to say I haven't activated anything and I haven't done any transfers today.
Congratulations,
Nathan.
It's an improvement
We'll
on
get
last
you a
week.
badge. We'll get you to know how, like if you're an alcoholic, you get like your 30 days clean badge. We'll get you like one of them every day you don't make a transfer.
That would be nice. Some recognition.
You just need that little hit of dopamine, don't you? You just need that dopamine. Just press the transfer. Just press the wildcard button.
I'll do it on Tuesday.
We're here to support you, Nathan.
Thanks, friends.
So another game week is finished, and we wanted to go through the main games first, discussing what the games with the most token points we want.
We have to start with the biggest token point, really, and that is Julian Nagelsmann's choice of suit. Now, we mentioned this last year for his semi-finals.
He's not a model.
That we thought he looked a little bit like a student on a night out. I think he's upgraded now. I think he looks like a student who's just got his loan in and has decided to go to top man, buy himself a lucky suit to go out in. I can't tell if I really like it or I'm seriously disturbed by it. Either way, Julian, if you're listening, I know that you are, just wear some normal clobber, maybe. And obviously there was a little case of Marcus Rashford feeding the people, feeding the children, feeding himself, and now feeding Anthony Martial by giving them penalties. So, all-round great guy. We have obviously Aaron. Aaron is religious. Aaron, would you compare Marcus Rashford to Jesus Christ?
What a question.
Yeah, he seems like the type of person that can turn a couple of fish and 5 loaves of bread into a million signatures.
What he's doing is massively admirable. And I remember at the start when he started doing this and his form dipped, that there was pundits saying that he needs to concentrate on football. Them pundits have now went into hiding, and there's been even comments on Facebook who have said that them comments were never made. So I think I remember them being made. I don't know about any of you, but they were definitely comments saying he needs to concentrate on football over feeding children. I don't know if anyone else remembered.
Were these pundits by any chance employed by BT?
Don't know. I just remember seeing and hearing that them comments were made, and now everywhere is trying to retract the comments, especially after the
staying
hashtag.
silent.
It doesn't make any sense because anyone in any profession, therefore, so like if you're an engineer, you shouldn't have an opinion on starving children. Or if you work at Tesco's, you shouldn't have an opinion on starving children. Or if you are a pundit for any network, you shouldn't have an opinion on starving children either. So by your own volition, shut your mouth. It doesn't make any sense that morality and employment, like the two mutually exclusive things, just if you have a platform, like we've spoken this podcast before about politics and sport, and that there is a time and place for it, because as much as it can be a great vehicle, sport should always be an escapism as well from reality. And even if we look at the situation, Marcus Rashford, a man who's went through this system himself, and you know, I can speak personally. I don't know about you two. I come from 2 council estates. Technically, my parents split when I was 2. I come from 2 really bad council estates. I've gratefully never had to have food coupons. It's got a little packed lunch or whatever, so I'm really grateful for that. But you know, Marcus Rashford is a person who I imagine used football as an escapism. So there is a level of, you know, keeping politics and sport separate, but he's not bringing politics into football. He's using his platform as a footballer with however many millions of followers to change something that's absolutely abhorrent in our society, that however many millions of children are starving and our government don't want to do anything to help. There's a huge fundamental difference in that. And whether he's a footballer, he is a shelf stacker, he's a binman, I don't care who he is, someone doing something about it is a fantastic thing, and they should always be given a round of applause for doing whatever they can.
100%. And I wish he got extra points on fantasy for what he's done. But anyways, on to the match. I'll hold my hands up. My prediction was completely off, and I think I got caught in the trap of, like, I guess it's just watching the Premier League a bit more of like Ollie not being good tactically, that I completely forgot that there's 2 other coaches in that group who are also not good tactically, and that Ollie is just good at counter-attacking good teams. So they've got 2 good results against the other 2 big teams in that group. They now have Istanbul back-to-back. Manchester United are in pole position to even top their group. And that's something that I did not see coming. I don't know about any of you two.
I mean, if we go off when we were watching the groups be drawn, we laughed at Man United when the groups came out.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying I'm grateful that we didn't say Ollie out. We were respectful towards Ollie, and whether he's the man for the different question, but we never said he should ever. Thankfully, people can go back in this. We never said, "Oh, Ollie out," or anything like that. So that's helpful. The thing I would disagree with you, Aaron, on in terms of Nagelman's tactical ineptitude is that I actually think he's very good tactically. The issue that he's got is like funds. Look at Leipzig's team. They are punching so far above their weight. They've got Angelino, who was laughed out of Manchester City, and he's doing things with him that's made pundits everywhere question Pep Guardiola's decision to do it. You know, before their run last year, really, how many people had heard of Leipzig players? Like outside of, Upamecano, because people play FIFA, Sabitzer was absolutely fantastic. There were so many players in that team, and he was doing things to get them to that stage of the competition on, I'm going to say a limited budget because it is. I know that Leipzig have got lots of issues in Germany with how much money they've got coming in terms of that 51% rule and things like that. But they're still not spending the money that Manchester United have. Like, Leipzig are still considerably smaller than Manchester United. Manchester United, on any other day, should be winning that fixture. It's a credit to Nagelsmann that we underestimated Manchester United. So that's something I'd say with that. On the night, though, Ollie got it spot on, really, and you can't say anything else. And yeah, Nagelsmann maybe did get it wrong. And I don't think Leipzig played that bad in the first half at all. I think they were unlucky with the first goal. I'm unsure of how it's not offside. Because I know that obviously armpits now count, but still the full arm of a player doesn't count because you can't score with it. So the defender's arm shouldn't come into it. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a very even first half. And once that second goal went in, Leipzig just completely capitulated, and it was a no-show from then. Little mistake. Sabitzer's penalty that he gave away was an absolute joke. I don't know what he's doing. I think it was his second substitute appearance back or something since his injury. So I don't know if that's had anything to do with it. Can't fault Man United the way that they played.
100%. And it was good to get Martial back. I think even though Bruno Fernandes was on the pitch, for those who had him in their team, they were probably hating Martial for taking that penalty. But it's good that they were able to be in a position to be able to help those of that attacking force to be able to get their confidence. Martial, I'm sure he was raring to go because he's been suspended for so long. Just a few matches, but it feels so long. And but Rashford coming off the bench just with feeling like he had a point to prove. And I remember saying in the preview podcast about it'll be interesting to see if Upamecano, how he does against a team that he was linked with. And I don't know whether, I think he did well for the most part, but a fresh Rashford coming on, especially for Rashford's first goal, I thought that was, he got turned inside out and Rashford just absolutely smashed it bottom corner. He was just inspired, and I hope that his form continues because he thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rashford played coming on fresh. It's always a danger. And Martial getting a goal, he's a confidence player.
Yeah, and something that I liked as well was Van de Beek started. That I thought that was nice. But Bruno Fernandes came on, and Pogba got an assist. So Manchester United seem to be gelling quite well. They're definitely improving than what we saw maybe at the start of the season. So although that wasn't hard, that was a low bar at the start of the season. So, but they're in a good position, and Leipzig, I'm sure they'll be raring to go. And we'll talk about Paris Saint-Germain later, but they'll be raring to try and get at this Paris team and seeing if they can get a result against them and try and progress as well.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting game. I think Man United, what's really benefiting them at the moment is I think Ollie's finally getting out of his head that he needs to be playing all of these players at the same time. And he's settled on a nice little rotation now. He's comfortable leaving Paul Pogba out, which I think is really important for Pogba as well, because it obviously must get to him that everything had to go through him before Fernandes got there. And then even still, when Fernandes is there, still seems to be, everything needs to be done between these two now. I think Van der Beek coming in really helps that. And Ollie having faith and, statistically, McTominay and Fred in the side, Man United play really really well, or they get good results, should I say. They suit that counter-attacking football. So I think the confidence in how Fred and McTominay can play in there. And I know that some Man United fans prefer Matic in there. So like their squad depth's absolutely brilliant now. And I think the fact that Ollie has confidence in all of those players really goes a long way, so that they all feel a part of it. They all feel a part of a team. And when they come on, they all feel they can contribute. With Rashford, I genuinely think he's getting a bit of a buzz in a good way, not in a narcissistic way or anything, about all the things going on, about the discussions, about how he's helping people, about how the entire country seems to be on his side. And I think when he comes on, he feels like the world is watching, the UK is watching. And more so than that, I think he's every neutral's favourite player for what he's doing. And I think he can feel that. I think he's someone that likes to be liked in a healthy way. And when he comes on and you know, bangs in a hat-trick, I just think it can only be a good thing for his development going forward over the next few weeks. Nice to see Fernandes get dropped and then come on and look really fresh. And he dictated a lot as well. I think he had an understated performance because Rashford stole all the headlines, but something positive for Man United. And they've got Istanbul 2 games in a row. Is that a trap? Is that not a trap? It's going to be so interesting seeing those games.
No, definitely. And so from a Leipzig point of view, it was good to have Sabitzer back. And they did quite well to compete with Manchester United. Like, basically, the floodgates opened at the end of the match. Like, you could look at that result and go, wow, Manchester United must have been dominant. But 4 of the goals came in the last 15, 20-ish minutes.
Yeah, it's like heads went down towards the end, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think just when Rashford got on and scored that first goal, I think the team just kind of went up a level. And I don't think Leipzig were able to match going up a level. They were able to compete with them for the most part. But from a Leipzig point of view, I think Angelino, who we all have in our teams, Angelino was in the box, and I think I'm sure Nkunku, when he had that shot at De Gea, Angelino was there for the drag back if Nkunku looked up. But in that kind of position, you don't really, you'd kind of get mad at the player if he didn't shoot and then ended up misplacing a pass. But Angelino was there in and around the box. So for those who ended up transferring him in, who justified his price rise, don't panic. He's still a really good option for that price. And he gets in and around the box. So don't panic about that too much. Did anyone else have any words they wanted to say on Leipzig before we moved on?
Nah, don't be scared of the scoreline. That's all I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the next match, which is Juventus versus Barcelona. Barcelona winning on the night. I just want to apologize to anybody, and I feel sorry for you. If you captained Morata, scoring a hat-trick of disallowed goals is something that I've never seen before, but if you had captained him or even had him in your team, I just want to hold a quick silence for you and know that things are okay. So thank you. What's everyone's thoughts on the game?
It wasn't I wasn't going to say it was outstanding. Like, it wasn't an outstanding game, but it was enjoyable to watch.
It was just a series of mistakes from either team, I think. Griezmann didn't look up to it. He squandered chances, bad decision-making, just looked like he was snatching at things. I think looked quintessential confidence issues. I think Juventus defensively were all over the place. I mean, it doesn't help because Danilo was a bit Jekyll and Hyde in that game, but I think it's because he's a good player, not playing in his strongest position. Barcelona probably deserved the win, but it's really hard. You look at Morata's disallowed goals. I think the first one is really harsh.
Yeah.
because I don't think it got ruled out for offside. I think it was for handball, judging from what I was seeing. And that is just, it's a stupid low. Like, he's had a shot and it's bounced off his hand because which are in front of his body anyway. If he had moved his arm out the way, it would have hit his body and he would have tapped it in as well anyway. So I didn't get the first one. The other two were quite clearly offside, and I don't know why it took VAR so long for that third goal to be ruled out. You could see in the replays he was comfortably off. Aaron, you're the expert. You tell us.
You're the Italian expert.
Yeah, I do think what it would have been like if Ronaldo had been on in them positions, or even like how the Barcelona defense would have struggled, because obviously PK wasn't there, who is very organized in that defense. A lot of it revolves around PK, and they had Neto in goal as well. Like, I feel like that was Juventus's chance to top the group, but because of Ronaldo's negative test, Barcelona, I think, were kind of let off because it was a weakened Barcelona defense. Juventus had so many attacking opportunities, as the disallowed goals show. What would have happened if Ronaldo was there as well? And that's what I think. But Pirlo is still trying to gel this team, and the formation changes every game. So it honestly, I don't know what is going to be like in like next week.
We'll just appreciate the pass for Messi.
Appreciate the pass.
Yeah, that pass to Dembele, first touch, like one touch, just bang straight over.
Yeah, he was doing Messi things again last night. Obviously, he took a penalty to score, but he's still like the best dribbler of the ball in the world. Like, he's unbelievable. I just think on another night it could have been so different, because I think Barcelona deserved the win. But on another night, the Morata goal stands. Ousmane Dembele's shot isn't deflected. I don't know what Bernardeschi's doing to Fati in the box. I've got no idea what that tackle was at all. Well put away by Messi.
I think Bernardeschi had Fati in his Champions League team and was like, I get points if he gets a penalty.
Really bad. Pirlo in the first half, tactically inept. Like, I think it's just... I also just don't think either team are the powerhouse they used to be. They're just the names that they were. They've got some really good players. Juventus have got KDB, Mark II in their midfield, who squandered a really good chance in the second half. We predicted a draw before the game. And I think after watching the game, I don't think anything would change my mind if I hadn't seen the scoreline was 2-0. It looked like the game was effectively like a draw. Griezmann was the most wasteful player on the pitch by a mile, though. He could have had a couple himself.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing when the ball got passed back to him. He just kind of left the ball, didn't he? Like, I don't know if you saw the same incident that I did on the highlights, but that pass back to him, he could have took that first time, and a confident Griezmann of the 2018 World Cup would have taken that shot straight away. But for some reason, he wanted to like kind of sit back and almost try and set up for the chip. And it just didn't work out. He's lost a lot of confidence. And Griezmann's one of them players where...
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's one of them players where if Griezmann isn't confident and isn't believing in himself, he loses a lot of his edge.
It's crazy to see what's happened to that France team confidence-wise. Like, if you go through it, like, Umtiti is having a shocker at the minute. Varane obviously had his issues in the Champions League last year and has already scored an own goal and has conceded a couple of goals to Mönchengladbach. And then, like, we've seen what's happening with Pogba and Man United. We've seen Kante's issues at Chelsea. We're seeing this with Griezmann. Ousmane Dembele is going through whatever. Giroud doesn't play anymore now that Werner's there. It's Thauvin went from winning France's Player of the Year, I think, for Marseille to basically the player he was at Newcastle, essentially. So it's absolutely crazy to see how things quickly can change in football.
And in terms of a fantasy point of view, Fatty not starting. Fatty's went up in his price. He's now 8.2. So a lot of people transferred him in this week for him not to start. I think that was quite an upset for a lot of people. But I'm sure
me included.
Yeah, and Dembele being considered a forward in the game, I think, kind of kills his value. So I wouldn't react too much. I don't think there's many knee-jerk type transfers that you need to get from this team. But other than that,
2 games in a row against Dynamo Kiev. Keep him.
Yeah.
Definitely don't get rid of him because he didn't start. He's still young. He's only 17, and he will play in them games where it's going to boost his confidence even more than he already has. So overall, good game, and it was. I just feel sorry for Morata.
Yeah.
Only Morata can do that. Speaking of Morata's old team, we're going to move on to Atletico Madrid versus Salzburg. I think in typical BT Sport fashion, the game with the most amount of goals from both teams has a 1-minute video clip highlight. In typical. So for those who were able to watch extended highlights, this game deserved the extended highlights. It was a very fascinating game. The teams were evenly matched. The first Salzburg goal, I thought, was just impressive. If I remembered it correctly. I watched a lot of goals today.
Szoboszlai.
Yeah.
Slobo. Andy Slobertson.
He's got
on that left.
He's doing really well so far for those who have him in. You called that, Dan, didn't you?
He did.
Yeah, and I'm really annoyed because I was going to make like a super differential 11. In the midfield was going to have Szoboszlai, Vanaken, and they both Miranchuk. There was like a few, like I wanted like sort of like an iron curtain where it was like teams going through the middle of Eastern Europe, just pick players out of those teams. So yeah, he's been really impressive, really, really impressive. His finishing's absolutely mesmeric from outside the box. I think Salzburg are really, really unlucky in this game. And ultimately what it came down to is João Felix proving that he's absolute mustard.
Mm-hmm. The worst part about this game for me is that I was going back and forth between Pulisic and Felix for the 9 million options. And I went with Pulisic because it was an easier opponent. And Felix proved that he is such a good player. And Portugal, in my opinion, you were talking about France, but Portugal have a very good team now. And I'm quite excited to see what they'll do in like upcoming competitions. Because, I mean, they've won the Nations League for whatever that is worth. They're the current Euro champions. I mean, granted, they were beaten against Uruguay in the World Cup, but they have a very good team now, and all of their young stars are starting to mature. So Felix, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Rafael Guerrero, all of these players are really, really good. And Felix showed in this, especially with his overhead kick that went off the crossbar in this game. He's just full of confidence for a young age, and he's only going to get better. And these Portuguese players are really exciting to watch.
Is it bad that Felix never crossed my mind? Like when I was doing transfers and thinking about my team?
I wouldn't say
it's not bad
so.
at all. Yeah, no, I said on the podcast last week that like each individual has like a bandwidth in their brain of how much information they can like juggle at one time. It's why people need spreadsheets in things like that. So if you're a casual player, you're someone that doesn't want to like make spreadsheets or overly look at everything. You can't physically hold every player's value and what they might do and fixture in your head. Like that's not something that you can be expected to do. We spoke about Felix, and I'll be honest with you, I just didn't fancy him because of his risk of rotation. And then when Costa was out, him and Suarez haven't been linking up that great. And to be fair, in this game, I don't think they did link up that great. I think Felix took the game by the scruff of the neck and did what he needed to do. However, the opportunities that he's had to do that in previous games this season, he hasn't shown it. So, no, I don't think it's like he scored 2 goals. Patrick Bamford scored 3 goals against Villa this weekend. Like, if you've got him and you captained him, if you did anything great. If you didn't, then you're not a lunatic. So I wouldn't worry about it. None of us had him.
Yeah.
No, I would it's like what Dan was saying, the risk of rotation amongst the forwards and the fact that sometimes Simeone plays Llorente up front. Like, it's about reducing the risk. And for the players that you brought in, Coleman is on great form.
Yeah.
So, no, I wouldn't get too down on yourself about that one. But overall, a very exciting game to watch. Lots of action. It shows that Salzburg, when they play Atletico Madrid next time, because I don't think they'll get anything from Bayern Munich, but when they play Atletico Madrid next time in Austria, game is going to decide who gets second place. And I'm excited if it's exactly the same as this one. It's lots of goals, which is not something you normally say with an Atletico Madrid game. So very exciting. So
yeah, Llorente scoring again. Would mention that if he plays in, what was said, he sometimes plays up front and he's useless. When he plays in midfield, he can be a real goal getter, and obviously plays in midfield and he pops up with a goal immediately. Like it. Sometimes it's not rocket science. Quite happy to see Felipe get awarded an own goal, because I think a lot of people had him in at 4.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
I never really saw the appeal of Atletico Madrid defenders in this group. It's such an attacking group that, they might win a game, but every team in this group is capable of scoring goals.
Yeah, I went down the same. I thought like Atletico defenders aren't going to be like getting us any points really.
No, definitely. I'm glad for those who will also have listened to that advice that we gave. So on to the other side of Madrid. So Mönchengladbach 2, Real Madrid 2. Real Madrid, very up and down right now. They win the El Clasico and then leave at last minute to get a point in Mönchengladbach. First Mönchengladbach goal, unbelievable. I thought the team, that counter-attacking team play was great, and that ball across was unbelievable. I thought it was an unreal goal. But Casemiro...
Aaron, did you like that goal by any chance?
No, I to be honest, I didn't. I'm just trying to be excited for once in my life.
Nah, it was absolutely outrageous, that goal.
To be fair, them two link up. Like, I've watched a bit of the German football, and them two link up amazingly.
And then it was just laziness from Mendy in the second Mönchengladbach goal. Just kind of inexperience rather than laziness. And then, like we said before in all of our previews, each midfielder will take a turn at getting a goal. Casemiro this time got a goal and an assist. So well played for Casemiro. It was really good to keep the ball in play for Benzema's goal. I thought it was out at first watching it, but it wasn't until they did like the goal line cameras that you saw that the goal never went out. So well played on his work rate. Benzema, great finish. And then Sergio Ramos, did he get awarded with that assist? It was kind of a weird bounce, but I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he did.
And then that just shows Ramos's appeal, although he was out of position for that. He got dragged out for that first goal because of how quick they attacked. But then people who we were suggesting before actually performed, and we were right in not suggesting Vinicius Jr. or Asensio or anyone like that. So well done to those who followed that advice.
Had an odd game.
Yeah, he did.
Asensio, you had a few opportunities. There was one in particular where he was driving through from midfield, because for anyone that didn't watch the game, it was predominantly Mönchengladbach controlling the game and Real Madrid trying to counter-attack, which was so ironic that Mönchengladbach's goal was a counter-attacking goal. But it was, for that first half, was Mönchengladbach dictating the game. in Real Madrid on the counter, Asensio bursting through the midfield, very central. And especially when they do the replay and it shows the camera behind the player, and you see he's got sort of a clean run at goal, a defender either side that could close that space, but he's got a runner left central and a runner far right to the wing. And he just makes that easy pass to that right winger instead of driving at those two defenders, making them two make a decision, either getting a shot off because he's great at shooting from outside the box, or then playing a pass into the player inside or outside. But he could have run another 10, 15 yards, but he just didn't seem very confident with it. So I was really disappointed with him. Obviously, we've all seen the highlights of Benzema and what he's allegedly said about Vinicius Jr. Like sometimes that's got to happen. Like I don't see the problem with it. The thing that I see the problem with is that the footage has been released. Like that's what's bad form. But if he wants to say to one of his teammates something that he thinks is going to win the game, look, this guy, I don't think he meant he's actually playing against them. I just think it's a turn of phrase. Mm-hmm. Like if I said, "Oh, I'm going to kill you, Nathan," no one's calling the police to get them around your house to protect you.
I'll put my phone down.
I just think he's like, "Oh, he's playing against us," like he's absolutely dreadful. Like I don't see anything wrong with it.
Exactly. Like a lot of ex-pros have come out and actually like said, look, we've said that in the dressing room before. We've said it to their faces before, and that like we're not going to pass you because it's not going when we're giving you the ball. It's not going our way.
I've done that in Sunday League before, or like I've looked up and went, do I want to get who's more capable, me or this person? And I'm not saying I'm a good footballer or anything. I'm just saying like if there's someone worse or someone's having a really bad game, sometimes you think twice, or sometimes you might say, oh look, he's not having a good game, just try and shift it to the other side, something like that. Maybe he said it a bit rude, but I think much was made of nothing. It's just obviously, I don't think it should have been shared like on social media, but that's the world we're living in, isn't it? So like 10 years ago, no one would have known about that.
Moving on, we have Lokomotiv Moscow. They gave Bayern Munich a good game, to be fair. Bayern Munich 2-1 in the end. Kimmich, well done all those who had him. A very consistent performer so far. 10 points in both games. And that's the reason why you pay 6.5 to get him in. I mean, you would be happy with that from a midfielder. So the fact that he's a defender, scoring outside the box, unbelievable. And Bayern Munich were definitely given a really... They had to work for that win, which was probably a surprise to some. Lewandowski still not finding the back of the net, which can be worrying for some, especially for his price tag. 12 million. He's taken a lot of budget. But what are your guys' thoughts on people who have Lewandowski? Should they keep him or get rid?
I think they should move him on. Like just for now, like maybe later in the competition, get him back. But I think there's other players out there scoring like and could get them more points.
I just think it's obviously down to each individual's position. If you think that there is someone worthwhile to go to that you are obsessed with getting due to their fixtures, who I'd probably say, Man United against Istanbul is looking good, then yeah, fair enough, move them on. But I wouldn't be in a rush because my plan anyway was to go to Lewandowski for match day 3. I think I said initially I wasn't too happy with these first couple of fixtures. But I didn't. Lokomotiv Moscow, I said, wouldn't give them an easy ride and that they'd be quite solid at the back because that's what they've got to be. Atletico Madrid, fair enough. The prediction that they'd be solid at the back was wrong, but I got lucky with total lucky that Lewandowski wasn't the one that got a return. And then I saw these two fixtures against an open team in Salzburg. So if you've got him, I don't see why you'd come away from him when Salzburg have got no interest in defending. It's just typical rash behaviour. Wait till the weekend's games come, make sure no one's got any injuries, see how he's getting on. I still might go to him. I've got Kingsley Coman as, I don't want to say coverage because there's not really coverage for Lewandowski when he starts banging them in. But is someone that will allow me to have coverage whilst, having someone else up front. I haven't made a decision yet still. It's just going to be based on my budget of whether I actually go for him, because that is a decision that I've got to make, because that was my planned transfer, that and a Man United midfielder. My only issue is I can't afford a Man United midfielder and Lewandowski without taking a hit. So
don't do it then.
It's entirely up to you. I just think if you haven't got Kimmich, get him in. We said it from the beginning. He's playing in midfield. He's got 10 points in each game. His goal was filthy. It was unbelievable goal.
Yeah,
so nice.
Moranchuk would mentioned he's got a goal, and he could have had another goal. That was the thing. He's missed a sitter in the game. Locomotive look okay to me. I wouldn't hesitate with having one of their players against Atletico Madrid. I think that can be another 2-2 or something. It's weird that group's turning out to be one of the more exciting ones.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been all different for Bayern at the start, though, because Locomotive took the game to them within 3 minutes and then they scored.
It shows that if you don't fear Bayern Munich, they're in trouble with their high line. David Alaba, I've had enough of him. Another bad performance.
Mm-hmm.
He was all over the place.
I think it's crazy that a team as good as Bayern Munich are playing with an out of position centre back.
Also, the left back Hernandez can play centre back.
Yeah,
because I'm sure he often plays centre back for France, and he plays left back. So would you not play Alaba left back and then him in the centre?
Yeah, play Alaba.
Who are we to argue with a man that's just won a treble?
Yeah,
just before we move on, Kingsley Coman has went up in price. He's 8.2. So for those who didn't get him in, you might have to sacrifice more of your money to be able to do that. A lot of people have went up by 0.2 instead of 0.1. So the game seems to be more crazy with their predictions, like with their price rises so far this season. Gnabry is back. So he's someone who will have to look at the playing time he gets over the next week, and he could be another premium midfielder option. So moving on to Marseille and Man City. Man City winning 3-0. I was sad when Sterling did so well, but happy for him at the same time that he's a hard worker. Like, whether you can criticize different parts of his game or not, he does put in a shift most games. De Bruyne looked solid again. It's good to see them all getting match fit. I wonder what this team will be like if Aguero was still there and Sterling didn't have to play up front, or one of the other wingers. And yeah, I think it was a solid Man City performance, and it was good that they kept a clean sheet. What are your guys' thoughts?
Man City absolutely dominated that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watched it, and Man City were just strolling through them every time.
Marseille were lucky to get 0, to be honest. Marseille, I think we'd said it in the previews. I'll have to go back, but I'm pretty confident we had absolutely zero faith in them. It was sort of Porto Olympiacos that we'd had above them. Nothing's changed my mind about them. They do look the weakest team in this group just because they're so defensively frail. They've got nothing about them. Even though they've got a couple of really talented players, I just don't think they've got what it takes. Man City, it could have been 5 or 6 or 7. I'm ridiculously frustrated that I still haven't put Ilkay Gundogan in my team. I don't know what I'm thinking.
I was going to bring that up actually because you mentioned him last week and then he's done it again this week.
I mention him every week and it's just, he's winding me up. But I think, I don't know, it might be a move that I go to. I'm waiting for Tuesday. I kind of want to get a feeling of, is Kingsley Coman going to play or not? That's my biggest concern with that rotation in there. And then I can obviously drop him down to a Greenwood against Istanbul double up, or a Gundogan against, is it what you got, Olympiacos twice? Because I feel them two players will play in those games. And then I can go up to Lewandowski from Mbappe. So they're the thoughts that I've got. But yeah, I mean, there's not an abundance to say because it's still the same old problems for Man City. We don't know who's going to play. I can't believe Sterling's played 180 minutes a week in the last 2 weeks. I don't know if that's sustainable at all. Torres seems to be like a little surprise player. He's got goals in the league. He's got goals in the Champions League now. I think he's been incredibly overlooked. I'd rather go Gundogan still for his price. I think Gundogan's cheaper. But if you're looking for a differential, Torres is looking very, very good.
Yeah, and we know that from experience and from last season, we pointed out that Gundogan plays every minute of the Champions League football. That's probably the clause that he had in his contract to sign an extension. He's consistent, 8 points per game so far, 6.5 million. Can't complain with that too much. One thing I wanted to bring up before moving on, the people trying to choose between Sterling and De Bruyne. De Bruyne is 1 million more expensive, than Sterling. De Bruyne is 11.5, making him tied with Salah as the most expensive midfielder. For the fact of saving $1 million, I'd probably go Sterling because, I mean, he's more like, especially when he's playing up front against these weaker defenders, I think he's more likely to do stuff. And so, but De Bruyne is the penalty taker, and at any minute could get a plethora of assists. But I just wanted to bring that up, that my opinion is to go for Sterling. What do you guys think?
I'd be tempted to agree with you, to be honest. I think Sterling would be the better option at the moment.
Yeah, especially with Aguero out injured. He's struggling for those forward positions, I think. But Sterling played out wide yesterday, and it just suits him so much more than playing through the middle. That's my biggest concern. If Pep starts putting him through the middle again, I want nothing to do with him. He can't play a striker.
Right.
It's too much money for me to go for either of them. I appreciate they got a 10 and 11 pointer this week. But what did they get last week? Is 0 and a 5 or something. So
I don't think De Bruyne played, did he?
Exactly. I know he was injured, but I mean, you can get injured again. People can get injured. I suppose you could say that about anyone, but De Bruyne does have a bit of an injury history. Sterling's playing every minute. It's a case of, for the next 2 games against Olympiacos, will Pep even play them? I don't know. Olympiacos are better defensively than we give credit for. I think maybe at the Etihad, they might struggle a little bit. I think when they take them back to Greece, it'll be an even game. Olympiacos have lost something ridiculous, like the last 13 away games in the Champions League or something. So at the Etihad, fair enough. Put them both in. If you've got a limitless, put them both in. I think that's one thing I'm actually looking at for when I use my limitless, is waiting for Man City to be at home against Olympiacos, because Olympiacos are so bad away from home.
Yeah, that's next game week.
So that is something that I'm looking at. Yeah, I don't know, Aaron, is the answer to your question. My mind would probably change after the weekend.
Yeah, so just the reason that I'm thinking about it is, and that I wanted to bring it up, is I would go for Sterling, because if you had 11.5 tied with Salah, would Salah not be a better option in a healthy Liverpool team? It has to put that asterisk in there. Salah would probably be the better option, especially in his group, compared to trying to face the Pep roulette, because you know that Salah is going to try and be greedy and get all the goals. So for 11.5, it's probably it's better to get Salah over De Bruyne, and then even then, Sterling's $1 million cheaper than them both, and he's not that big of a drop off. Just you've got to face Pep roulette. So moving on, Liverpool 2, Midtjylland 0. None of the front 3 started. So speaking of that, it's a good thing that we're giving people that advice. I think that's one of the good thing about the research that we do, is that we could kind of see that coming. And I feel bad for those who were burnt by that, who maybe had Mane, Salah. Not many people had Firmino, but for those who did, it is sad when you get burnt like that. But
Salah did all right, didn't he? Won a pen and scored it. He got 7.8 points overall.
Yeah, he did.
Not bad.
There's a reason people don't have Firmino. I mean, it was edited last week, but Dan had a nice little rant about Firmino. That was fun to listen to.
Yeah,
But he
that's
proved it this week when he missed a sitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, Liverpool, I'm sure with their defensive injuries, are happy that they didn't give away any goals. Even though it's
Yeah,
Midtjylland, it's still Champions League opposition. And so I'm sure they liked having a bit of a confidence boost.
well,
trying
the
to
first
work
half,
together.
Liverpool didn't have a shot on target.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll take the clean sheet at the end of the day. And then they were confident. Liverpool
got very lucky in that first half.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Midtjylland were the better team in the first half.
Yeah.
Then obviously the second half, Trent in particular picked it up. So, and it's one thing, like obviously we said maybe try to avoid those Liverpool fullbacks, but they have, because they've kept 2 clean sheets, they're getting ball recovery points. And now, obviously, one of them has popped up with an assist. Did he get one? He got one assist, didn't he?
Yeah.
So they are looking really good. Trent Drew, Alexander Robertson, as I like to call them now, as the pair. But the thing that I've got a little concern is Atalanta next. I don't see a clean sheet for either of those teams. So now I think might be the wrong time to go on them. If a lot of people got the double up with the limitless wildcard, and just well done, because it's such a good shout. But there's been obviously a lot of love for Trent, saying, oh, he's one of the best attacking players in the world. Oh, there he is, he's back. I do just want to say it is against a Danish Super League team. Let's not get carried away. Let's hope, as a young English fullback, that he can now carry that confidence into the league and do well then. But I don't think, beating the Danish Super League champions 2-0 and, being fairly fortuitous with it is something that's praised too much.
So calm down, Liverpool fans.
No, not calm down. You celebrate every win. Doesn't matter if you win 2-0. I don't care who it's against. You're celebrating. We go mad when we beat Oxford in the cup in extra time. It doesn't matter. You support your team. You're going to go mad. I just think, obviously, in terms of hyping the players too much, that's all I'm saying. Let's not get too carried away. They're going to have much stiffer opposition than that. But you can only beat what's in front of you. And Trent was absolutely brilliant on the night. And he was easily man of the match. I would have loved to have seen a Midtjylland goal. I just wanted to see them go crazy. Fabinho now injured is a massive issue for Liverpool. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. But
it's actually just been released.
Has it? How long?
Yeah,
Do you know?
I'm just looking now because it literally just came out before something about it.
From what I know, it's a grade 1 hamstring strain. So you're looking at between 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, he's been taken out the Brazil squad for next month. So it's looking like he's at least a month out.
Yeah, just from my knowledge of sports rehab from a course in my degree, a grade 1 hamstring tear or strain, whichever one he has, you're looking at 2 weeks of no load. So he won't be training, he won't be doing anything like that. It'll just be putting your leg up, making sure that you're strengthening the other muscles. And then for the following 2 weeks, it's about mobilization. So he'll be walking, he'll be balancing on his hamstring on the weekend leg. And then after that, you'll be looking to kick the ball with both legs while doing balance exercises. And then look with probably the 5th week, looking at coming into full training. So it's 4 to 6 weeks normally for a grade 1 hamstring.
I think I speak for all women would like to say pray for Fabinho.
Get the t-shirts out.
Get the t-shirts, lads.
Requiesce them, Batche.
Love that reference. Moving on to the other teams in that group, we have Atalanta 2, Ajax 2. Two very attacking teams, obviously with Ajax coming off their 13-0 win Atalanta, who haven't been best form in the league. They've lost 2 already, but both high-scoring teams, 2-2. I think you called that one, Dan.
Did I? I can't remember. So many games. I'm like, what did I do? I mean, it sounds about right.
You called it because I said it was going to be 3-2.
Well, there you go. Look at that.
There you go.
I can't claim that there was much science behind it other than they're both like scoring and neither of them are great defensively. So
yeah, exactly. I think just 2 things I wanted to bring up for this match. So Zapata, we mentioned him on the last podcast that if we were to redo our team, Zapata would have been the player we went for over Gomez. I think that makes sense in hindsight, not only looking at his performances, but we basically paid 8.5 for an out of position striker. So he's a midfielder. He's not going to get forward as much. Yes, he's really attacking, but for those who made that jump to Zapata, I think he's the second highest scoring player in the game. Actually, he's tied first. So for those who have had him in since the start, really well done on him. And against a weakened Liverpool defence, it looks like he could have even more joy depending on how Liverpool play. And then what's everyone's thoughts on that actually about the Atalanta striking options?
Zapata's been quite a surprise at the start, really. Like, obviously everyone thought Gomez will just hit the ground running again, but Zapata's smashing them in.
That was the thing last year, is that Zapata, he was prolific in the league, but then he would get rested in the Champions League and Ilicic would play up front.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's not a surprise in the sense that Zapata is a good striker, but it's the fact that he is now being prioritized as a Champions League striker and he's not getting much playing time in the league. I think that is the surprising part. And if we had have had more data about Gasperini's rotation, we would have said from the start, get Zapata in. Unfortunately, we had only the league to go off, and last year's form to know that Zapata was not a Champions League striker, but this season he is, and he's got to play all these teams again, a weakened Liverpool defense. He seems like a player that if you are looking to get rid of Lewandowski or Messi or anyone like that who you thought have kind of let you down, or maybe I think the better option would be Neymar. A lot of people looking to get rid of Neymar.
Yeah.
Zapata seems to be one where you could get some budget back, but looks like you could get returns in any match he plays with.
I don't think it's a surprise what he's doing at all. It's just, like you say, Aaron, it's that risk of rotation and the fact that he's been given the opportunity. As soon as we see that he's playing that game, and then we checked the weekend, and he came off the bench, it was nailed on he was going to play. And I think I'd said in the last pod, if you need to go to one of them, go to Zapata, not Gomez. And I said that's my big regret, that I wish I'd went to Zapata. But the information that I had, if I could turn back time, would still have led me to Gomez.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Gomez being cheaper, my issue is maybe trying to get from Gomez to Zapata. So that's like, it's just a tough decision. I'm really not convinced with Atlanta's defense. I mean, I never was. We never have been. But usually they'll concede goals with an educated risk of scoring more. Whereas it just seems to me that they're in a bit of an absolute shambles at the back, where it's not a case of, right, we're going to try and score 2, and if you score 1, that's fine, because we'll get another 2, and then you can score 1, and then that's the way that Atlanta usually play. Whereas at the minute, it's coming in, they'll concede 2 in a row, and then they might have to score 2 in a row, or they might score 2 in a row, then they concede 2, and it's these blocks where it's not a to and fro, and they're relying on their attacking talent to win the contest. It's they are playing badly, and then they are playing well, which, yeah, you know what, at the end of the day, it might come out with the same result roughly, but it doesn't really fill us with confidence. And really looking to get rid of Hatterbauer for these next Liverpool games. I think this is going to be chaos.
Yeah, 100%. And I think bringing up Hatterbauer and Gosens, an Atalanta player that went kind of under the radar is Romero. He, in the last game, had 19 ball recoveries. And then in the game before, had 14. He's 4.7. So people have jumped on him. And a double up against Liverpool when he's already got 14 ball recoveries against Midtjylland and then 19 against Ajax. And at the rate, he plays on the left side of their back three. And he's up against Salah, who loses the ball quite a lot when he dribbles. He's not prolific at dribbling. Well, not as prolific as what he was when he first came into the Premier League, from my opinion. And so he looks like set to get more ball recoveries. At the rate that he's going, he could be a budget option from Hatterbauer. Although you're not going to get the full 0.5 anymore, you could still save some money to go up to some of these players in midfield. Maybe upgrade Fatty or Coleman now that they're 8.2. You could push them up to an 8.5, and likewise for any other position. So that they're just some players I wanted to bring up. From the Ajax side, they look impressive. They knew that they could get at this Atalanta team. They should have gotten more points against Liverpool. I think they're kind of kicking themselves that they didn't. But does anybody have any thoughts on Ajax, especially as they come up against Midtjylland 2 games in a row now?
I think that could be high scoring for Ajax. I mean, Midtjylland obviously we said done well against Liverpool, but if Ajax are going full strength, Liverpool obviously didn't really up front. Ajax could get some goals in that game. They do look dangerous. Traore is looking like the striker that they need. Realistically, like he can get the goals quite well.
Yeah, Tadic obviously on penalties.
Yep.
And I think he's their outstanding player. Shout out to Anthony as well, by the way, the young Brazilian winger that would mention that we're a little bit disappointed that he was a 6 million forward. I don't think he's much of a fantasy asset, but in terms of watching a player play, he's majestic. Some of his touches, his audacity, it looks like he's really enjoying and thriving playing in the biggest club competition in the world. Nutmegging Atalanta players like a bunch of schoolboys. So I've got a lot of time for him already. I like him as a player. Like I say, far too punty as an UCL asset. I think what would be better is just Traore. I think he's $500,000 cheaper and he's far more likely to do the business up top. If you want premium, then go Tadic. I wouldn't be too bothered about any of their other players. Defensively, yes. Midtjylland don't look overly threatening. And I think you could be looking at some Ajax players getting A, clean sheets and B, ball recovery points. If you're on a limitless for this week or game week 4, well, injuries obviously pending, but Tagliafico would be a good shout just because we know that he does have an attacking threat as well as anything else. So I would look at players like that if you wanting to sort of guarantee a clean sheet. I think Ajax are as good a team as any to get one coming up against these. They were unlucky against Liverpool. And Atalanta are a great attacking team. Let's not forget about that. So I don't think Midtjylland have got the capabilities if Ajax go a couple of goals ahead to break them down.
No, I agree. Moving on to Dortmund, they beat Zenit 2-0. A lot of people got scared near the end that Haaland, myself included, wasn't going to score.
I
was happy with the Mounier clean sheet. Wasn't expecting that, to be honest, but was happy that he got some sort of return, although it wasn't where I wanted. Sancho being the penalty kick taker. I didn't know that going into the game that he was the penalty taker. I thought Haaland was. Did any of you know that Sancho was that?
No, I thought exactly the same as you. I thought it was Haaland. So I was quite surprised when Sancho took it.
Royce is the dedicated penalty taker. So as soon as he came off, I've got no idea the order. So it might just be whoever feels most confident It might be Sancho. I'm not entirely sure. I know that if Royce is on the pitch, he's the one that's going to take it. Beyond that, obviously, best guess now is Jadon Sancho. It was a bit of an odd game. I don't think Dortmund really found their rhythm. They've got too many attacking players, and this constant rotation doesn't seem to be helping them. Haaland is human. He missed a really good one-on-one in the first half. Just dragged it wide. Zenit did well to stifle them. Barrios had another really good game in central midfield. He's genuinely a really good player, and I think if he keeps on performing, bigger teams need to take a look at him. Maybe not like your massive clubs, but certainly, teams like Everton have struggled to find holding midfielders, and Gambin's obviously been injured for the best part of 2 years. But teams like that, I think, could really look at a player like Barrios just for how well he is at breaking up the play. He really stifled Dortmund in that first half. Dortmund was sort of subjected to having long-range efforts, really frustrated until the penalty came. Then obviously Zenit had to push up a little bit higher, and Haaland was able to do his thing, beating the offside trap and finishing the way that Haaland does.
Yeah, I thought from a Zenit point of view, Barrios, I didn't put him in. I think I mentioned that before, that I thought that a weakened Lazio team were there for the taking for Bruges, but in hindsight, Barrios with his ball recoveries, he seems a very solid option. And yeah, I totally agree with you that bigger teams should be looking at him. So moving on, Chelsea beating Krasnodar 4-0. I thought that this was it was expected, but it was nice to see the attacking players for Chelsea. They're starting to gel together, and defensively, Chelsea look a lot better. We were really talking about that in the previews, but you kind of in typical Chelsea fashion, you're kind of waiting for the mistake. But now that Azpilicueta's gone, not Azpilicueta, sorry, Kepa is gone. Azpilicueta's still there. He's still a good player.
Kepa Azpilicueta.
Yeah. Now that they've sorted out their goalkeeping situation, they do look a lot more solid as a team. And I think you can you've seen this with the Liverpool team when they got Alisson. And you've seen this with teams in the past that a goalkeeper really shows up their team. Although Mendy's still young, it's quite good for Chelsea moving forward. However, let's be realistic, it is Krasnodar. I don't think I was expecting them to be too attacking, but I'm happy that I kept Pulisic in my team and got a goal in the end. What are your thoughts on the game?
I think having Mendy in between the sticks, obviously, it is giving the defense a lot more confidence than when Kepa's there, because, like you said, if there's a good keeper there, it's not all on the defense half the time. But I did expect a Chelsea win. Couldn't expect anything else. Krasnodar weren't going to. I mean, they try to give them the best of game they can, but Chelsea have got that much attacking power. It was always going to be Chelsea's game.
Yeah, Krasnodar didn't really offer too much. I think by the end of it, Chelsea did, the road they look in a sense where obviously Krasnodar hit the bar from a corner, and that was a sort of a crucial stage in the game. If that goes in, maybe it's a different story. Ziyech looked really, really lively. I think he was a bit fortunate to score in the end because he's had that many little trickles at the goalkeeper. His shooting didn't really seem up to scratch on the night, but it's his first game back, and I think him driving into areas, and he was always looking for a killer pass. He rarely looked for the easy ball. He was looking to exploit Krasnodar defensively as often as possible. And I just think with fitness, his shooting is going to come good, and he still got the goal ultimately. Jorginho missing the penalty. He's hit the inside of the post. It's not like he's hit it straight at the goalkeeper or anything. It's one of those things. Werner lashing one in. And yeah, it was good to see Pulisic score. I still think he's Chelsea's best player. And I think he proved that. Did he win a penalty? Did he win Werner's penalty as well, I think? So it was a good night overall for him. But there was no surprises. And even we said, if you want to go Chelsea assets, they'll get goals, but it's up to you to pick which one's going to get them. And it turned out that they completely shared them, like between assists and goals. Like Havertz got an assist, Werner got a goal, Hudson-Odoi got a goal, Pulisic got a goal, Ziyech got a goal. It's just so hard to pick between them. And obviously, because they won 4-0, if you've punted on one of them, then you've probably got some form of a return. But moving forward, now they've got Ren, is which one of those is now going to get you another goal, another attacking return? I do think Chelsea will beat Ren. We'll save that for our preview show. But it's just so hard to pick between them. And when they're all priced at, 9 million or something crazy, it's just so hard to even remotely identify which one you want. I think it's just, which one do you want to see play? Because they might even get rotated for the next game. I think the biggest issue with Chelsea is I think them and Sevilla would have qualified by match day 5. I think Chelsea will beat Rennes twice. Sevilla have got Krasnodar twice. I think they'll both be qualified. And then Frank's just going to go on a massive rotation, like when Sevilla and Chelsea play each other. I know they'll probably want to finish top of the group or whatever, but still, I still think you'll prioritise the Premier League.
Definitely. I think with Pulisic, I did him as a transfer with kind of the next game week in mind, because I was able to bring in Coleman, which was good. Forsberg to Coleman, Sterling to Pulisic, who had an easy game. But then I've got 0.5, and I can now go from Pulisic to Rashford or Pulisic to Bruno Fernandes. So that was kind of my thinking in the end behind a 9 million midfielder. I just chose him over Felix, which was, it is what it is. Moving on to, you've already mentioned them, Sevilla win 1-0 against Rennes. Expected another solid defensive performance from Sevilla. We were mentioning that Koundé is one of the best 4 million options to get. Sevilla looks solid against Krasnodar twice. I don't think that you can look anywhere else in defense except from Sevilla over the next 2 game weeks.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, Sevilla could have won 4 or 5. They were just very wasteful in front of goal. Rennes looked toothless. We highlighted Rafinha leaving could be a real issue for them in attacking areas. It's proven to be the case. I'd feel very confident if you got a Chelsea asset and they play, I'd feel very confident.
Definitely. Moving on, Shakhtar 0, Inter Milan 0. This is a game I don't think many people saw coming, and hopefully I'm able to talk about Inter Milan without Dan or Nathan, the audio messing up and someone's talking over me. Whatever happened with that, again, apologies.
Shakhtar played really, really well.
I didn't see this result coming. I didn't see 0-0. I thought with the way that both teams were, I would have thought at least a few goals would have been scored, especially from Lukaku and the form that he was in. But like I've always said from the start, from the group stage, Conte does not do good in Europe.
You said this last year, Aaron. You've always banged that Conte drum. You said at the very start of last season when we were doing the pod, and I'm thinking, oh, this could be good. You've said straight away, no, Conte does not like the Champions League.
Mm-hmm. And even when he was at Juventus, that was probably one of the best Juventus teams they've had in a while before Ronaldo. And he did the same thing. But I mean, Shakhtar do have to go back to Italy to play, but Shakhtar are now in a very good position with Real Madrid drawing. They're on 4 points, and everyone else, they have a 2-point cushion, I think, over the other teams. So they're solid, in my opinion. Paris Saint-Germain winning 2-0 against Istanbul. To be fair, I expected a lot more from Paris in this game. What are your thoughts on this?
I watched it. It was boring. honestly, PSG, you can just tell they're not a team; they're a bunch of individuals.
Mhm.
The amount of times it was just right. Well, Mbappe's going to get the ball. He's just going to run with it and hope for the best, and that was literally what it was. Neymar got a bit of it, got an injury, and was off within 5 minutes of getting that injury. They just didn't look. I mean, if anything, Istanbul had a hatful of chances where they could have actually made PSG pay. Vilka or Visca, or whatever his name is, he looks a very good player, and he could be
Was he
dangerous.
the one that was just missing like 20 yarders every time?
He was just hitting them from distance, and he troubled Navas quite a few times, and he was creating quite a few as well. But PSG, it just looks like a bunch of individuals just playing together.
Yeah, I think the one positive for them is Moise Kean's transition into the team. Him and Mbappe and him and Neymar do look like they are gelling well as a two. It's now they've got to bring in all those players in behind. Di Maria's got to do better. The midfield players have got to do better. Defensively, I don't think they look great. Istanbul had far too many chances. I know that a lot of them were long ranges, but I mean, they've hit the post at one point, and it could have been a very different story. Mbappe looked incredibly sharp. He was a one-man team, really. I appreciate Kian scored a couple of goals, but they were fairly on. Actually, no, you know what? Kian's second goal was brilliant. He did really well to take it, so I'm doing him a disservice there. But it was Mbappe sort of just picking up the ball, as you say, Nathan, and driving up that left wing, doing what he can. They had moments as well, PSG, where, you know, Mbappe's ran through, he's passed it to Di Maria. Di Maria's got a one-on-one, just put the ball in the net. Then he passes it back to Mbappe to try and have an open goal, but it's behind Mbappe. Mbappe falls over, and it's all just a bit calamitous, like they aren't on the same wavelength. But I don't think anyone was on Di Maria's wavelength. Some of the decision-making he made during the game, I think he probably came closest in the first half with a really good shot, but beyond that...
He came close in the first half, but literally, it just seemed like it was him and Mbappe, but they weren't in the same... It was like they weren't in the same team at times.
It's going to be really interesting the next game against Leipzig, because obviously they're both out of form in the Champions League, really. PSG with the better result, but that's just going to be such an interesting game. It's not one that I'd like to call personally.
Definitely. Moving on to Porto beating Olympiacos 2-0. Porto did look dangerous when they played Manchester City, and I think they showed that they're quite a solid team. A lot of people may not give them credit or may not watch the Portuguese league often, but against this kind of standard of opposition, it just shows that Porto are kind of a solid team. Each person knows their role, and in the end, it was a really good result. I don't know much about Olympiacos, whether they're going through a transition or something, but they don't look comfortable this season, and I think 2 games against Manchester City coming up, that's not looking positive for them at all. You mentioned, Dan, earlier that Olympiacos are on that losing streak away in Europe, and yeah, Man City, they travel to Manchester next. Manchester City players look like a good options if you're willing to take the pep roulette risk.
Not too much. I just think it's pretty obvious, really, that you don't want any Olympiacos players for the next couple of weeks. Porto look really lively, and I think they'll do the same against Marseille. I think they'll beat Marseille by a couple of goals as well. I think that group's sort of shaping up nicely so that we can start to predict. Mm-hmm. I mean, even after 2 game weeks, I think it's going to be Man City, Porto, Olympiacos, Marseille.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree there.
Moving on to Ferencvaros drawing with Dynamo Kiev 2-2. That's a result that both of these teams, they both can see that Europa League spot. I don't think that's disrespectful in me saying either, but both of these teams, I don't think are trying to challenge Barcelona and Juventus. However, with both of in this game, at least both of them showed that they can score. I just don't think they're as strong as Barcelona or Juventus. So this game was kind of the third place decider. A draw is probably not the best result. Dynamo Kiev, definitely the happier of the two teams.
100%.
And yeah, we'll see what happens in the return fixture. So,
well, we'll say that they're the happier. I think if you said before the game it would be a draw, Dynamo would be the happier of the two. But obviously, with the way the game's gone, they were 2-0 up, 2-1 up, and then their captain gets needlessly sent off for a second yellow. Ridiculous what he's doing. And he's let the team down. And then obviously Frank Varos have got that equaliser sort of at the death. And they're going to be so frustrated with that. But I think obviously going back to Dynamo is going to be a much more difficult task for Frank Varos. But Frank Varos did have fans in the stadium. So, hopefully, they played their part and they've seen their team get a Champions League draw, which is nothing to be sniffed at. I agree that before the game, you'd probably say that's a good result for Dynamo. But I think given the context of the game, Dynamo will be really disappointed that they let the lead slip.
Yeah, definitely.
I predicted this one correctly on a predictor. I actually put 2-2.
Well done.
Well done, Nathan.
Oh, good stuff. On to the last of this round of fixtures. We've mentioned it throughout the podcast, but Bruges won, Lazio won. We first heard the report in the morning that Lazio, a lot of their team did not show up to training. And little did I know that them reports were actually, they had some meat to them. And a lot of the Lazio players sat out of this one. So when I heard that Diatta was in, Lazio were probably happy with this draw. The fact that they didn't play a full strength team and still drew away in Europe, especially with their recent record in Europe. But we'll see what happens in the return leg, and hopefully they can get a full strength squad back soon. I apologize for those who jumped on the Immobile bandwagon after I was bigging him up. I think that if he did start, he would have scored, but unfortunately in the current COVID climate, that's the risk that we have to run every game week, that at any moment, any of these players could isolate for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, that is the huge risk, especially in European travel. So, but what are your thoughts on the game?
I thought Lazio did really well with the tools that they had. Deserved to go ahead. I think a draw was a fair result. But by the end, especially in that second half, Bruges were well on top. Diatta, again, I think he was their best player. I think he was Bruges' best player, but not overly from a fantasy asset point of view, because he was very much, again, a right midfielder, not a right winger. He did put in a couple of good balls into the box that we're hoping some people could get on. I had Vormer on my bench. I had to choose between him and De Ketelaere. I went with De Ketelaere, and thankfully Vormer missed an absolute sitter. Borderline an open goal. He's put it over the bar. Vanek and Skywalker, we called it, and he's now came good. So that's good to see there. I think Bruges are an exciting team. I don't think they fear anyone. Like I say, overall, a draw was a fair result, but I think Lazio would definitely be the happier of the two teams with their COVID issues first and foremost, and then the pressure that Bruges put on them in the second half was really intense, and they sort of struggled to deal with it after a little while.
Yeah, I'd agree. To get out, like, with the problems they've had, to get out with a draw, it's a good point gained, like, for them.
Yeah, credit to Inzaghi, who... the manager, he was meant to be, well, he was the bookies' favorite to get the Juventus job when Sarri got it in Italy. Might have to put an asterisk there. And then this time around, it was exactly the same, in that except from Pirlo got the job. So it's kind of just waiting and seeing what Inzaghi can do before Juventus make that jump to him. to be fair, I think this kind of result shows that he is a very smart manager and that he's willing, whatever's given to him, he'll work out a team that can at least get a result that they're happy with. And so I think he'll have a good future with Juventus when they eventually make that jump. But in the meantime, happy result. But that's the game week 2, everyone. Really good results, good scores by everybody. I mean, we did as well as we could in the circumstances. So what is everybody's closing thoughts on game week 2?
I feel okay. I'm happy that I've still got my limitless wildcard and that I'm still within touching distance of first place. I think I'm only like 30 points behind or something like that, which, you know, if when people that have been using limitless wildcards have been getting 110 points and I've got 65 or something, I still think I'm quite happy with that. And I've still got my normal wildcard as well, obviously. One thing I do want to say, Aaron, I want to cheer you up.
Please.
However, I want you to keep in my earlier remarks just because your reaction was fantastic. So don't edit it out, even though we are now retconning what I've already said.
I know what it is.
But since there's just been so much commotion on Twitter about this limitless wildcard thing, UEFA's Gaming Hub has reinstated the original rules. So now people who have used the limitless wildcard have 3 transfers. So whatever your chip strategy was, Aaron, you can go back to it now, and anyone else as well.
Limitless wildcard next week. Woo! No,
I'm seriously thinking about it.
Same. Like, it's really in my thoughts. Like, do I just use the limitless next week because the weeks after you're going to be looking at rotation?
Yeah, and then, but it's also I think rotation that makes you want to use it as well, knowing that people will be rotated. I just wanted that extra transfer after that break in case anything happened to any of these players. But then again, what a perfect way to use a limitless wildcard, knowing what's going to happen to all these players. Nathan, what are your closing thoughts?
I think I've done all right. I'm looking at like where I can make an improvement for obviously next week. A couple of the Ajax players are looking quite tempting for us. It's just what I decide to go with in the end, or do I use my wildcard and then fully change it? Exciting times. But I'm coming for you, and I am gonna go past you this week. Well, yeah, if you didn't take a point hit, you would have been. Let's not talk about that one. But
big words from Nathan.
I know.
Just a reminder for everyone, we are on Twitter at UCL Fantasy Pod. Please give us a follow. Feel free to ask us any questions on there. I am trying to just get back to everyone that tweets us or has any questions or anything at all. And we're also on YouTube and Spotify as the main event Champions League Fantasy Football Podcast. So get us on there, whatever you prefer. I appreciate Spotify is not available in every country, and having a YouTube video of just our voices can be annoying. So it's whatever floats your boat.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Dan, Nathan, thank you for joining. Dan, especially for cheering me up, especially at the end. I was kind of a lost cause.
You're welcome.
But stay tuned for our preview podcast of Game Week 3. We'll make sure that in between that 3-week gap that we keep you updated on all of these teams. But we're excited for the game week ahead. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time.